Joshua and his team seem driven by profit rather than genuine competition. Fury argues that Joshua ought to face him or Deontay Wilder, as they represent real heavyweight tests. Picking Jake Paul appears more like a financial strategy than a serious sporting decision.
Out of all the information that's getting disclosed, supposedly this administration, what do you have the least faith that we're going to come to
Epstein,
a conclusion?
for sure.
Epstein.
And I think it's because of Israel. I think when you really dig into Epstein, his entire network was Israel. It was clearly, Ehud Barak was the ex-prime minister and the ex-head of Israeli intelligence. Leslie Wexner was one of the most powerful pro-Israeli philanthropists. The whole organization was Israel. And I'm not saying it was all of Israel.
It was all an intelligence gathering and
it was targeting Americans. It was targeting American officials and the American president.
Right.
And the CIA does have interest in those targets too. Elements in the CIA does. Certainly they had help from the CIA, and certainly they had help from these other organized crime and intelligence operations. But you don't, so for example, Dan Bongino, the new, deputy director of the FBI, he recently had this clip that went all around where he said on camera that he had a source that he trusted deeply. And he's an informed guy. He was at a Fox News interview, and the source told him that Epstein was working for an intelligence agency in the Middle East. And I don't know which one, but someone in the Middle East. And to be fair, we all already knew this. We already know who he worked for. At least I think so. But I'm looking at, okay, Dan, so if this giant group of Jewish billionaires is running a sex trafficking operation targeting American politicians and business people and stuff, you think they're working with an Arab or Muslim nation in the Middle East? You think that Leslie Wexner is devoting his entire life to philanthropies on behalf of Israel, but then he's going to work for Saudi Arabia when he's doing this trafficking?
Responds to the idea of Jake Paul stepping in against Anthony Joshua rests on one clear argument. For Jake, the scenario offers virtually no real risk. Bisping notes that Jake Paul has placed himself in a position where a victory would earn him massive admiration, and a loss would still elevate his profile. If Jake somehow managed to beat Joshua, even through sheer luck, he would immediately gain the legitimacy critics say he lacks. It would mean he overcame a former unified heavyweight champion, a task that even seasoned contenders found difficult. But even if Jake fell short, Bisping argues the outcome still benefits him because he would have shared the ring with a world-class heavyweight. In Bisping's view, this allows Jake to frame himself as bold and ambitious, someone unafraid to test himself against a far superior opponent. For Bisping, the weight of expectation sits almost entirely on Joshua, because anything less than a dominant performance will make fans question his credibility as a top attraction.
House Democrats released those emails obtained from the Epstein estate, showing the convicted sex offender discussing Trump and seeming to suggest he had information he never shared. In a 2011 exchange with his co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein writing the, quote, dog that hasn't barked is Trump, adding one of his victims spent hours with Trump at Epstein's home, but that Trump had never once been mentioned. Maxwell replying, I have been thinking about that. House Republicans in the White House identifying the victim as Virginia Giuffre, who once worked at Trump's spa at Mar-a-Lago. Giuffre said she never saw Trump do anything inappropriate. She died by suicide earlier this year. In a 2018 text exchange, someone whose name is redacted wrote to Epstein, "It will all blow over. They're really just trying to take down Trump and doing whatever they can to do that." The context of the message is unclear, but Epstein responding, "It's wild because I am the one able to take him down." Trump and Epstein were friends for more than a decade.
Have you socialized with him?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today, I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights, sir.
After Epstein's arrest in 2019, Trump said he hadn't spoken to him in 15 years. He insists he broke off the friendship when he learned Epstein and Maxwell were luring away young female staffers who worked at Mar-a-Lago.
He stole people that worked for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again, and I threw him out of the place, persona non grata. I threw him out, and that was it.
In a 2019 email to author Michael Wolff, Epstein writing, Trump said he asked me to resign. Never a member ever. Of course, he knew about the girls, as he asked.
Joe Rogan highlights that Anthony Joshua is an Olympic gold medalist and one of the most dangerous punchers of this generation. In his view, Joshua would enter the ring determined to send a clear message. Rogan says Joshua would not just aim to win, but to make Jake Paul think twice before calling out real heavyweight champions. For Joshua, the fight becomes a statement of dominance rather than simple victory.
If I had to guess. There's too much circumstantial evidence that leads me to believe that it was an assassination. You know, I know a lot of people think that he committed suicide. A lot of very smart people that I know think he committed suicide. I'm like, there's too many convenient things. The cut wires, the security cameras rather not working. They weren't cut, right? They just stopped. They didn't function. Security cameras didn't function. Yeah. The fact that he had shared a cell with this giant former cop who was a murderer, who had multiple people, just giant roided up cop. Like, this is a cellmate. Like, if you wanted to get somebody, hey, look, bro, extra Twinkies, take this guy out. Like, It wouldn't be hard. He's already killed a bunch of people. He was a drug dealer. Do you ever see the guy? Do you ever see the guy who was his cellmate?
No, but it's like
it's kind of hilarious.
It's like when you're a freshman in college and they just put you with somebody, you know?
Bro, if you wanted to get someone killed, you have a high profile witness, okay? High profile witness in the craziest trafficking conspiracy of all time, where a guy who may or may not have been an intelligence asset or an intelligence agent or whatever the fuck he was for whatever country, this guy he's arrested for trafficking to elites, and then you put him in jail.
Oh my God.
With that guy.
I thought that was the guy that fought Mike Tyson. Remember that dude who read that poem?
Bro, you put him in jail with that guy. All you have to do is get that guy cigarettes and steroids. You tell him, I got you Marlboro Reds and Tren. I got you testosterone replacement for life, even though you're going to still be in jail.
I got you some Marlboro and
Test
200s.
Dude, he was found guilty of killing 4 men, and they put him in a cell with Epstein. Look at the size of that savage.
Big guy.
Giant muscle-bound, steroided up dude, and they put him in a cell with Epstein, and Epstein got strangled. Well,
Epstein might have been
not Sherlock Holmes, but I think there might be a connection there.
Epstein was probably trying to slurp him. I bet that dude was such a pervert, dude.
Well, if he didn't kill him, then somebody.
I bet he was such a pervert.
I think somebody killed him. Retired Westchester cop charged with $4 and cocaine deal after bodies dug up on his property. Bro, he buried them in his backyard.
Yeah,
that's a crazy motherfucker.
Or that's a good gardener.
Frank Warren's view on the matter is more doubtful, yet still very straightforward. He explains that the whole discussion appeared out of nowhere without any build-up. In his opinion, every indication shows that Jake Paul is the one forcefully driving this potential fight. Warren believes Jake is exhausted from hearing people accuse him of choosing soft opponents. Whenever Jake faces someone smaller, older, or not fully rooted in boxing, the criticism only increases. Warren feels Jake now wants a matchup that ends at criticism once and for all, and stepping in with Joshua is the quickest path to do that. He adds that most promoters never imagined such an idea would surface, especially coming from Jake's side. The matchup almost sounds like a publicity stunt. Yet Warren points out that the YouTuber turned boxer appears committed to proving he is prepared for a real heavyweight challenge.
Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, I watched some of your Senate hearing yesterday when Senator Kennedy asked you, you've seen most of the files, who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these women to besides himself? You replied, according to the transcript, there is no credible information that he trafficked them to anyone else. According to victims who cooperated with the FBI in that investigation, these documents in FBI possession, your possession, detail at least 20 men, including Mr. Jess Staley, CEO of Barclays Bank, who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked victims to, victims including minors such as Virginia Roberts Giuffre, may she rest in peace. That list also includes at least 19 other individuals, one Hollywood producer worth a few $100 million, one royal prince, one high-profile individual in the music industry, one very prominent banker, one high-profile government official, one high-profile former politician, one owner of a car company in Italy, one rock star, one magician, at least 6 billionaires, including a billionaire from Canada. We know these people exist in the FBI files, the files that you control. I don't know exactly who they are, but the FBI does. Have you launched any investigations into any of these people, and have you seen these 302 documents?
Sir, I have asked my FBI agents to review the entirety of the Epstein files and bring forth any credible information. And we're working with Congress not only to divulge that information and produce it to you, but any investigations that arise from any credible investigation will be brought. There have been no new materials brought to me launching a new.
Spencer Oliver addresses the subject from a completely different perspective as he discusses it with a group of analysts. He believes there is a symbolic layer behind everything. Oliver claims that if Joshua genuinely agreed to such a matchup, he would be stepping into a moment similar to what Muhammad Ali once created in his own era, taking unusual bouts that attracted huge audiences outside the sport's usual following. Oliver points out that this kind of fight could unlock new marketing opportunities and bring in millions of viewers who normally pay no attention to standard boxing. Even if the competitive level isn't identical, the spectacle alone generates attention. In Oliver's view, Joshua putting his reputation on the line to participate in something experimental highlights how the sport keeps evolving. He thinks Joshua could capture worldwide interest from younger audiences who follow online influencers more than fighters. This could help Joshua expand his star power and create a wider legacy on the entertainment side of the boxing world.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list.
You say that the FBI has Epstein's list. They're sitting on it. Why is the FBI protecting the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list. You don't think that Bill Gates is lobbying Congress night and day to prevent the disclosure of that list?
Some governments around the world may have some material that's related to the Epstein thing. Bill Clinton was knee deep in this, man.
He was knee deep. Yeah, you got to release it. Now what? What changed? They literally campaigned on this. It was part of the platform of man.
Joseph Parker insists Anthony Joshua must remain committed to genuine competition if he hopes to push his boxing career forward. He believes Joshua should be involved in serious heavyweight clashes rather than spectacle-based matchups. Parker maintains that facing influencers adds nothing to Joshua's legacy, and that only real contenders can keep him respected and relevant within the sport.
Crazy, because when Kash Patel was on here and he was like, there's nothing. And I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I didn't even know what to say. My thought was, and people are like, why didn't you push back more? My thought was like, I'm just going to put this out there and let the internet do its work. Because there's nothing I can. The guy's saying there's no tapes, there's no video. That doesn't make any sense. Everyone knows it doesn't make any sense. And then he didn't know about the Michael Baden stuff, the autopsy stuff, where it showed that he had 3 broken bones in his neck, which never happens when you hang yourself. Even when you like leap from somewhere with a rope around your neck and it snaps your neck, you never have 3
and he's
broken
in a prison
bones.
cell. He's not launching himself off the first floor balcony.
The whole thing was nuts. And then he's like, well, we have a film. We're going to release that film. And the film has a fucking minute missing from it.
Yeah.
Like, do you think we're babies? Like,
Plus,
what is this?
Also, you got people, including Dan Bongino, right, making bank for a couple of years talking about how awful it is, and we got to get this. This is a huge conspiracy, and then you release a 2-page memo that says, there's nothing to see here.
Yeah, because you're walking by your bedroom window and you see a little laser, red laser moving across your chest.
But it really is. It's so look. You know me, I'm not a conspiracy guy by
you
nature.
Are today.
But I am today. Today, I'm fully on board with this shit.
Everybody's in today.
Yeah, no, but they're actually doing right as we speak. And I find this fascinating, is that the Assistant Attorney General, Todd Blanche, is down in Florida for an interview with Ghislaine Maxwell. Right? And she's serving 20 years in a Florida prison for sex trafficking. Right?
To who, though?
What's that?
To who?
Well, he's down there to interview her.
But I'm saying she's sex trafficked to
who? She was a co-conspirator of Epstein's, right?
But don't you have to have a person who you're sex trafficking to?
Exactly. And they talked about the victims somewhat during her trial. It was it was a very difficult trial in the sense of, they're trying to protect certain victims and others were coming forward. But, my surprise was nobody from DOJ has ever, according to her legal team, nobody has ever interviewed her from DOJ.
At the same time, we're actually getting clues to who Epstein was working for. On a recent episode of his podcast, Joe Rogan actually invited an ex-CIA agent who told him that people like Epstein, who have connections to powerful people, are often targeted by intelligence agencies. These agencies know that just by getting close to someone like Epstein, they can gain leverage on the people he works with.
But there's fucking pinhole cameras all over that house.
Yeah. Well, you
Maybe they
have
took
to
him
start
down.
from that perception, right? Because again, if anything else, you're just being naive if you think, no, there's nothing. Again,
You got to
God
take
damn
it down
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
bare beams.
Yeah.
What do you think that was all about? Who do you think was involved in that? Do you think it was the Mossad? Do you think it was some rogue intelligence agency in America? Was it a coordinated effort?
You know what? I know there's there's a lot of talk about did he have some sort of intel connection, right?
Right.
That from my perspective, it's complete speculation. But I will say, like from an operational perspective, I have no idea. Was it Mossad? Was it anybody? Who knows?
Right.
But from an operational perspective, if you see a guy like this who's super connected and all the way back to 2008 was like his first trial, right? So he's had a long history of these problems. But if you know that he's kind of engaged in a variety of things, as an example, if I'm Chinese intel, right, and I just read the goddamn entertainment news, and there's these rumors and allegations of high level people flying off to his island, I'm going to think that's interesting because potentially if I could get an accessed source there, if I can get somebody right inside that operation, whether it's Ghislaine Maxwell, or whether it's Epstein himself, whether it's somebody who's just on the outskirts of it, maybe I'll start picking up some pretty interesting leverageable information on people that maybe I want to influence.
Joe Rogan said the quiet part out loud. Epstein was part of a blackmail ring, and his job was to collect intelligence. And when you look at the patterns, the guest lists, the meetings, the unexplained access, the way every major institution kept bending around him, it suddenly stops sounding like a wild theory and starts looking like the only explanation that fits.
Let me just get real and say,
if I gun to your head, what do you think your best assessment of what Epstein, who was Epstein, who was he working for?
well, I don't know, right? So I'm just guessing. Everybody wants to say he was working for the Mossad. He very well could have been. He could have been working for the CIA. He could have been a guy who was on his own, but also working with them, right? Like a guy that they used, but they never fully endorsed.
Like an asset?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a guy who could move money around.
Right.
He definitely...
Good at laundering money.
The moving money around stuff was very weird because he had money through no way that anybody could ever explain.
Yeah.
He had an enormous amount of money through no way that nobody could ever explain. Which, if you're state-funded, you're funded by Israel, and Israel's funded by America, and there's also NGOs and nonprofits, and there's ways to move money around where you can give this guy money.
Yeah.
So he was like Weinstein, who is an economist, right? Weinstein's a legitimate mathematician.
Eric?
Yeah. So when Eric met him, his first inclination was he was a fraud.
He's a construct.
Yeah, a construct. And did he tell you the whole story about the girl sitting on his lap?
Yep.
So he was obviously nerd fishing. He was fishing for nerds, and I think he caught a lot of nerds in that net. There's a lot of those guys
100%.
that wound up going to that island. They probably thought, this is great. We get to party.
Nothing's free.
And they probably felt like they were rock stars because they get to hang out with the intellectual elite on an island with a guy who's just a billionaire philanthropist who's eccentric, who just loves women. He's a professed bachelor, and it all seemed too good to be true.
It's so true.
Because it was.
Yeah.
So I think he was an asset. Whether or not it was for the Mossad strictly or Israel strictly or the United States strictly, whether it was a CIA thing, I don't know. But I think it was probably a part of a blackmail compromise effort.
Chael Sonnen, however, isn't convinced that any of this is even legitimate. He cautions that the public is rushed too quickly into debating a matchup that no officials have actually verified. Sonnen emphasizes that Joshua has carried British boxing for nearly 2 decades and built a career grounded in discipline, professionalism, and pride. To him, the idea that Joshua would suddenly throw all that aside to face Jake Paul feels questionable. Sonnen argues that if Joshua truly agreed to such a bout, countless longtime supporters would lose respect for him. He believes the sport has granted Joshua too much stature to risk it on a spectacle. Sonnen also notes that Jake Paul's camp has issued no firm statement confirming genuine talks, and nothing is valid until promoters or the fighters themselves deliver an official announcement. Sonnen views this entire discussion as nothing more than a rumor that spun out of control.
And what country is putting so much pressure on Trump to keep the Epstein files hidden? And you included a picture about donations from pro-Israel lobbying group AIPAC. What are you trying to say there?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's the question that many Americans are asking, especially when we saw information recently come out in these emails that the Oversight Committee that I serve on has released. And we saw Jeffrey Epstein with ties to Ehud Barak. We saw him making business deals with them, also business deals that involved the Israeli government, and seems to have led into their intel agencies. And I think the right question is to ask is, was Jeffrey Epstein working for Israel? And I'm proud to say I don't take money from AIPAC. I don't take money from any special group of people. I'm just representing my district and the American people. And so that's what I was referring to.
I just want to be clear. Are you saying Israel is pushing the president of the United States to cover up the Epstein files? And what evidence do you have that is the case?
I simply just asked out loud, is there a foreign government? It could be any foreign government, but is a foreign government pushing to keep this covered up? Because people just don't understand the big fight against.
Well, you had AIPAC up there. It was pretty clear which government you were talking about.
That I'm questioning that government in particular and questioning any other foreign government.
Oh, it's pretty clear which government. Yeah, what's wrong with talking about that government? The evidence is straight up. It's right there. I mean, what's the problem with it? It's just so ridiculous, and it's just crazy. It's I really believe that the Israel-Epstein connection is one of the reasons why not just Trump, but a lot of the conservative media was so reluctant to actually go full on in the release of the Epstein files.
Simon Jordan's view is even more direct. He labels the idea of Joshua facing Jake Paul as a foolish matchup, completely disconnected from the standards real boxing is supposed to uphold. Jordan acknowledges that enormous money is involved, possibly one of the biggest paydays Joshua could ever secure, but he argues that a fight must represent more than financial exchange. In his eyes, this situation drifts far away from genuine sporting purpose and leans entirely into showmanship. For him, the matchup isn't only one-sided, but also disrespectful to the athletes who dedicate their lives to legitimate competition and uphold the...
It was good to see that Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, who's currently on a tour talking about the Antichrist everywhere, and Steve Bannon were all listed in this.
You know what the craziest it is? I saw this clip from Joe Rogan recently. I forget exactly what I was watching. I was watching someone on YouTube. Talk about Peter Thiel, and they unearthed a clip from fairly recent, maybe, where Peter Thiel went on Joe Rogan. Thiel was like, yeah, I knew Jeffrey Epstein. Like, I have connections to him. And Joe Rogan was like, oh yeah, before he was arrested, right? And Peter Thiel was like, no, I hung out with him after he was arrested and was like a known pal.
I met Epstein a few times as well, and I think...
How'd you get introduced?
It was Reid Hoffman in Silicon Valley introduced us in 2014, but it was basically I didn't ask enough questions about it. I think there were sort of a lot of things where it was fraudulent. I do think Epstein knew a lot about taxes.
And you were introduced to him. How was he described to you?
He was described as one of the smartest tax people in the world.
Interesting.
And I probably was my moral weakness that I.
Well, how could you have known back then? He had never been arrested.
No, this was 2014. It was post arrest.
Oh, so his arrest was the first arrest, right?
Yeah,
which was like
2007, 08.
Okay.
And it's like, what do you mean? Why would you admit that you actively still hung out with him after he was a convicted? This is crazy.
Tony Bellew also adds his voice to the criticism and refuses to believe the matchup is real unless both men are actually standing inside the ring. Bellew has always been direct.
Released 20,000 plus pages of other Epstein documents. The Republicans' additional release of documents made him look awful. For starters, in this new batch, Trump's name appeared over 1,600 times. Wow, these are not casual mentions either. In one email, Epstein wrote, "I have met some very bad people, none as bad as Trump, not one decent cell in his body." Whoa. It's got to hurt when Jeffrey Epstein calls you a bad guy. That's like an airport muffin accusing you of being dry. This weekend, one of those emails captured the nation's hearts and minds. It was from Jeffrey Epstein's brother, Mark, who emailed Jeff in 2018 telling him to ask Jeff's friend, Steve Bannon, quote, if Putin has the photos of Trump blowing Bubba. Okay. Okay. I don't want to talk about this. I mean, I try to be a good person. You know, I taught Sunday school. We have standards at the Late Show, but we also have a self-imposed mandate to talk a lot about what a lot of people are talking about. And for the past few days, a lot of people have been talking about this email. Who is this lucky Bubba? Mark Epstein released a statement saying this email was, quote, part of a humorous private exchange between two brothers, and any attempt to conflate that reference with President Clinton misrepresents both the purpose and the tone of the original correspondence.
See ya. Yeah, because there's probably a lot like that. And those kind of honeypot operations, they let these freaks know, like, hey, you're going to be safe with me. Charlie will take care of everything. Look, Bill Clinton used to come here. Don't worry about it. Yeah. You know, we're going to go to the island.
And that's a big endorsement. It's like presidents were here, so it must be a secure area.
Exactly.
I can get down.
Are on the island with Bill. Yeah. This is fine.
And
we're
all
fine.
These girls show up, and you're like, well, this is Christmas in July.
Bill is really interested in string theory. He'd like to talk to you about string theory. So you're sitting down there having cocktails while Bill Clinton's getting a massage from some girl who's rubbing her tits against the back of his head while she's massaging him.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, that's really interesting. Hey, I'm kind of tired. I'm going to take a nap.
Another thing about black holes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think they all thought that it was this lovely exchange of powerful people and brilliant people. And then they were just getting dirt on all of them.
Thanks
Guys
for watching.
cheating on their wives.
Stay tuned.
So
we'll be
what
back
do you
next.
think?